The photographs, artifacts, and evidence we have gathered undoubtedly point to a lost and unknown civilization that predates all others, not by a few hundred or a few thousand years, but by many thousands of years. These discoveries are so impressive that they will not be easily accepted by mainstream opinion, historians, or archaeologists. A complete paradigm shift is necessary in our way of viewing our human history.
Author. Imagine coming across traces of an ancient civilization, so old that it predates not only all known civilizations, but even the appearance of man on our planet. Today we will talk about this incredible story, a narrative that challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations, a story shrouded in the mists of time, but one that finds confirmation in numerous ancient texts. All right, let's begin our journey, but before we start, if you haven't done so yet, we invite you to subscribe to the channel because your support is essential for us and for our work. Retracing human history according to the official narrative, it is believed that Homo sapiens first appeared on our planet between 300,000 and 200,000 years ago in Africa. The first organized societies, according to this historical view, would emerge about 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia with the Sumerian civilization. Faced with this information, a spontaneous question arises. If in just 6,000 years, humanity has developed social and technological skills advanced enough to go from a primitive society to space exploration, what did humans do in the previous 200,000 years? Is it really plausible that it took all those years to evolve from living in caves to a more advanced civilization? Those who follow our channel know that there is evidence of advanced civilizations older than those commonly accepted. We have talked, for example, about Göbekli Tepe, Gunung Padang, and all the doubts related to the dating of the Egyptian pyramids. But what we are going to talk about today takes us much further back in time, to an era when human presence was not yet fully confirmed. For centuries, in the valleys and among the hills of South Africa, local legends have passed down stories of an ancient place whose memory has gradually faded over time. These stories, handed down from generation to generation, painted a picture of an ancient forgotten civilization of which there were no longer any traces. Johann Heine, an expert pilot specialized in firefighting operations, dedicated many years of his life to flying over the region of Mpumalanga, an area located about 300 kilometers from Johannesburg on the border with Mozambique. Thanks to the privileged view from above, Heine, during his missions, spotted something extraordinary: huge and mysterious circular stone ruins. The intriguing discovery led him to document these strange structures through a series of countless photographs. The researchers to whom Johann Heine showed the photographs initially claimed that these were simply the remains of an ancient site called kraal, a sort of enclosure historically used by the Bantu people to protect their livestock. According to this theory, the enclosures were abandoned during the migrations of the 14th and 17th centuries, and their use was forgotten by history. All this changed, however, when Heine, together with independent researcher Michael Tellinger, began to systematically examine the site, and what the two men would soon discover would be shocking. Observing the place from above, Tellinger and Heine noticed the immense extent of these structures, which, seen from ground level, were almost unrecognizable due to the vegetation and sand covering them. But from above, they appeared in all their majesty. While many of these structures seemed severely eroded by time, some had miraculously survived so well that they revealed their impressive size. Some original walls still stood, reaching almost 2 meters in height and over 1 meter in width. The observation from this perspective clearly suggested that this was a carefully planned work created by an advanced society. The site, according to the two researchers, also appears to be an integral part of a vast and ancient metropolis. The analysis of aerial photographs suggests that the city would have extended over an impressive area of 5,000 square kilometers. But this area would constitute only a portion of an even larger community, which would cover as much as 35,000 square kilometers. In reality, rather than a single site, it is more accurate to speak of multiple sites. To help you better understand the size of these places, in the description of this video, you'll find the coordinates that you can paste into Google to personally view the region. As you can see, within this vast settlement, you can identify particular networks that seem to resemble modern road connections. Some of them would extend for dozens of kilometers and seem to connect what almost looks like a city to the surrounding fields. The organization and structure of these settlements show surprising similarities to those of the ancient Inca civilization in Peru. But there's another interesting fact. According to some analyses carried out by Thillinger, powerful magnetic anomalies have been recorded inside these circles.
Energy measurements have established that the circles still generate enormous amounts of energy. We measured it: electromagnetic waves, sound waves, and heat signatures. We measured the highest sound, 103 decibels, coming from the walls of some circles, a heat signature of over 80 degrees and 1800 megahertz. These are still very active and energetic places, and inside the circle, satellite signals are lost. If you take a step inside, the signal disappears. If you step back, the GPS works again, and all of this is due to the strong electromagnetic field. Who created this system of stones? It doesn't matter who those people were, they undoubtedly had extensive knowledge of acoustics and astronomy.
Another relevant element to consider is that South Africa, and in particular the area near this incredible discovery, is extremely rich in ancient gold mines that are still being exploited today. South Africa is actually one of the countries with the most underground gold. At this point, the question arises whether there is a correlation between this ancient site and the extraction of gold from the mines. But it is also true, however, that it is not clear what these ancient inhabitants could have done with a metal like gold. A metal that, to be extracted, requires great physical and organizational effort, and that certainly could not be used for practical purposes like food or tools. So why would a still primitive society have to extract gold in large quantities? What did they use it for? After this extraordinary discovery, the next challenge was to date these impressive structures. The use of carbon-14 for dating was not feasible, since the presence of wood or similar materials could have been influenced by events that occurred after the construction of the site. As we know, dating stone is not possible, but there is a particular method, the analysis of the oxide patina that forms on stones over time. Every stone structure, in fact, depending on its composition, accumulates deposits over the years that react with air and humidity, creating a colored patina on the surface. If this patina is not removed or damaged, the color and the accumulated thickness can provide indications about the age of the stone on which it is formed. The characteristics and growth rates of the patina also depend on the composition of the stones themselves, and in this case, since these are siliceous rocks, the analyses indicated an age of just over 200,000 years. This first clue suggests that these structures may have been erected a very long time ago, and that over the course of many millennia, they were then used by various cultures that succeeded one another in that region. Among them, for example, the Baconi, to whom they are commonly attributed, but who, according to this first estimate, would have only used them and certainly not built them. Another discovery, made by chance in 2003 by Johann Heine, adds weight to this extraordinary dating. During one of his explorations, Heine identified a series of large stones that were protruding from the ground. As he approached, he saw they were precisely aligned with the Earth's cardinal points. After weeks of measurements, Heine concluded that those stones marked solstices and equinoxes, and therefore represented a sort of ancient calendar.
The calendar was designed to be aligned with the 4 cardinal points, north, south, east, and west, but it also features a stone carved in the shape of a hawk. I believe it can be related to the Egyptian deity Horus. This sculpture marks the sunrise during the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere of the planet. It seems that this is the oldest stone sculpture of Horus ever found to date. It is known that Horus always represents the rising of the sun, so this could mean that we are facing the place of the rising of the primordial Horus.
In ancient Egypt, as we know, there was a correlation between the deities and the stars. This association was based on the belief that the Egyptian gods were connected to specific constellations and that these influenced life on Earth. The constellation Orion, for example, known in ancient Egypt as Sa, was often associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife and regeneration. Osiris, father of Horus, had a strong connection with death and rebirth, and his association with Orion can be interpreted as a celestial representation of these beliefs. The constellation Orion was therefore seen as a place where Osiris reigned in the afterlife. Based on these assumptions, the first attempts to date this ancient calendar were based on the observation of the rising of Orion, the constellation famous for its 3 bright stars that formed the belt of the legendary hunter. To their surprise, the researchers noticed that the stones seemed to match the constellation Orion, but there was a problem. They appeared to be offset from the ideal horizon line, as if they had been moved to another position. This is actually normal. We know that the Earth, over time, wobbles on its axis, causing changes in the angle at which stars and constellations appear in the night sky. This rotation is known as precession, and it completes a cycle every 26,000 years. So if you could determine when the 3 stars of Orion's belt were aligned horizontally with respect to the horizon, it becomes possible to estimate the exact moment when the 3 calendar stones were erected in line with these visible stars. An initial rough calculation had suggested an age of at least 25,000 years, but as we will see, more precise measurements have indicated a much greater age. To estimate the exact age when the 3 stars were perfectly aligned with the megaliths, it was actually necessary to consider the natural erosion that these had undergone over the years, and the fact that part of these rocks were broken and their fragments were lying on the ground. The most recent and accurate calculation that takes all these variables into account was conducted in June 2009 and indicated an age of at least 160,000 years. This new calculation took into account both the apparent rising of Orion on the horizon and the erosion that time has caused to the megaliths. So before us, we have a disconcerting revelation. Who could have built a structure of this complexity as far back as 160,000 years ago? As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, Homo sapiens is believed to have appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago. So, how could such an advanced civilization have existed almost at the same time? Clearly, it's impossible, but if we go back in time and retrace the history of human origins, we find a fascinating coincidence that seems to link this place to the appearance of Homo sapiens. In fact, if we follow the path of humanity, we can go back in time to a point where Homo sapiens, that is, us modern human beings, evolved from more primitive ancestors known as hominids. Even though scientists have not yet fully understood how and why this new human form suddenly emerged, we can still follow the trail of our DNA, all the way back to a single woman called mitochondrial Eve, the mother of our species. Mitochondrial Eve is actually the name given by scholars to the woman who is considered the most recent common matrilineal ancestor for all living human beings. As we know, all of us inherit our mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down only from mother to children. Scientists estimate that mitochondrial Eve may have lived between 150,000 and 250,000 years ago in East Africa, specifically south and west of Tanzania. It seems then that we are all direct descendants of this human woman who may have lived in the same region as the mysterious and fascinating structures we are talking about. Well, before we go any further, let's take a moment to sum up the situation. We said that Heine and Tellinger have identified the remains of what appears to be a very ancient archaeological site. The dating techniques they used seem to place this site in a very ancient era, and this not only coincides in time with the birth of our species, but the locations also appear to be the same. All of this is obviously intriguing and fascinating, but it must be studied and examined with extreme caution, because we are talking about a discovery that, if after years of investigation it were confirmed even in part, would be regarded as not only the greatest archaeological discovery ever made, but would overturn everything we know about our origins. But now let's delve into the darkest and most mysterious part of this story. Those seeking certainties and scientific evidence can stop now, as they won't find satisfactory answers here. But those who are eager to embark on a journey to a very distant and mysterious era can join us in the second part of this video and ask themselves with an open mind, free from prejudice. If everything that Tillinger and Heine discovered is correct, who could have ever built these structures and in? As we mentioned earlier, in this particular region of South Africa, we know that there are ancient gold mines and that these might have had a mysterious connection with this discovery. Well, if we examine Sumerian mythology, we discover that the gold mines would have played a fundamental role in this whole story. The oldest commonly accepted civilization is the Sumerian one, which developed in Mesopotamia in 3500 BC in the region known today as Iraq. From the Sumerians, we have inherited many stories, myths, and legends, and many of them were later taken up and reworked by the cultures that followed over the years. In the Enuma Elish, which is one of the most well-known Sumerian epic tales, it tells of the origin of the world and the Sumerian gods. The gods, according to Sumerian mythology, were divine beings who came from the sky or from a place called Nibiru. These were superior beings with divine powers and advanced abilities. According to Sumerian mythology, in ancient times on Earth, there were two categories of deities: the worker gods, who were tasked with building infrastructure and working in the gold mines, gold that was meant for activities outside our planet, and the ruling class, which was made up of the deities who commanded all the lesser gods. After thousands of years of this work, the worker gods rebelled against the deities in command because they considered the work in the mines too hard. The deities, unable to quell the revolt, decided to solve the problem by creating a hybrid to work in their place. This hybrid was man.
Beli Tili, the goddess of the maternal womb, is present. Let the goddess of the maternal womb create her offspring, and let man bear the burden of the gods.
To create humanity, the gods would have killed Geshtu, a god who possessed intelligence, and from his blood mixed with clay, humanity was born. What is narrated in these ancient texts, seen with today's knowledge, appears to be a sort of in vitro fertilization, from which an evolved being was born who was able to perform the functions of the worker gods. In other texts, it is also explained that the deities had come down to earth to extract gold. But once this operation was completed, it was decided that humanity, which in the meantime had grown excessively, would have to die. The cause of mankind's death would have been a powerful flood, which would have unleashed such a great inundation as to destroy our planet. According to the story, however, one of the gods had sympathy for a human being named Ziusudu. He warned him that in order to survive, he would have to build a boat. When the flood came, it inundated the land and destroyed most of humanity. But Ziusudu managed to save himself along with his family and all the animals that had found a place on the boat. The presence of these ancient structures in southern South Africa, the existence of ancient mines, and the coincidence of the time and place of the birth of mankind. This has led several researchers to hypothesize that what is written in the Sumerian texts is not just a myth or legend, but is backed by concrete evidence. Clearly, there is no proof that all of this actually happened, But we cannot deny that this story is particularly fascinating and opens up to intriguing possibilities, especially when you consider that there are countless accounts passed down through time, coming from various places around the world, all telling the same story. The discovery of these incredible structures, regardless of what one might think about them, deserves to be investigated and explored further. And who knows, maybe one day we might discover that not everything reported in Sumerian mythology is a product of imagination, but that something extraordinary really did happen. Who were these deities the ancient Sumerians spoke of? Were they a people who came from the stars? Or is it something else? We'll continue talking about this in the next videos, but for now, if this story has fascinated you and you've made it this far, we're really curious to know your opinion. Write in the comments what you think, and if you like the video and want to support our work, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next story.